Welcome back to the Papa Meat channel. How you doing? How you doing? Come on in and sit on down. Today, I have something very, very important I'm going to try to drill into your brain. I'm going to try to stop you from going to hell yourself. What is hell exactly? Cruise lines. You ever have somebody who's like, we're going on a cruise? They say it as if it's not a prison sentence. Cruises are the biggest anomaly. It's like if Walmart was a boat. Which, honestly, when you say it out loud like that, it seems pretty cool. But cruise ships are, in my opinion, a floating nightmare. I've been on a cruise ship once whenever I graduated college. I think it was 3 or 4 days in total, and it was 3 or 4 days too long. I think by the first night, you kind of got it, and then you realize, like, oh, I'm stranded on this thing. Cruises have all kinds of crazy things. Drunken fighting, turbulent water. People don't realize how many people go overboard a year on cruise ships, okay? People also don't talk about the rampant assault and even murder that happens on cruise ships. So today I want to go through a couple instances of some very famous cruise ships and cruise incidents, along with some nice factoids to make sure that you do vacationing right and you stay away from cruise ships. So let's get into it. Today this video is sponsored by BetterHelp. Whether you're experiencing stress, long-term issues, or trying to maintain personal goals, BetterHelp's therapy is here to help you. And if you click the link in the description, you'll get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. BetterHelp makes therapy so much easier and a lot less intimidating. Meet your way with virtual sessions, a simple phone call, or even messaging back and forth. Whatever that is most comfortable to you is the way BetterHelp wants to work. And since BetterHelp's benefits are virtual, you can match with over 30,000 therapists based on your needs and preferences and find the perfect therapist for you. Depending on where you live, you may only have a few options around town. Do you really want to drive miles to have to sit in a lobby and kind of, hope that a therapist works, only to have you be wish-washy on the issue? Instead, maybe deal with these issues from the comfort of your home instead of out and about and all that kind of stuff, and have BetterHelp get you started. In most cases, people who join BetterHelp get matched with a therapist within 48 hours! And to lighten the stress even further, you don't have to worry about the awkwardness of breaking up with your therapist. If you feel like someone isn't a great fit, you can switch at any time with the click of a button for free. Join over 4 million people who have used BetterHelp to start living a healthier, happier life. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/papameat to get started. Clicking the link helps support the channel, and it also gives you 10% off your first month at BetterHelp. Thank you, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this video, and back to the video. Cruises right now are almost a $30 billion a year industry. Isn't that crazy? The amount of people, though, that I hear, they're like, I'm going on a cruise. We're going up to Alaska to look at whales, and we get to go on a whale cruise. I would rather go to like a corn maze in Iowa. I think I can confidently say that enough. I think I can confidently say I would rather go to like in a corn maze. This is a heavy hitter, and this would be a nightmare for everyone involved. And it's the infamous poop cruise of 2013. A fire in the engine room of the Carnival Triumph led to some horrific events. Smoke in the hallway quickly turned to piled up red biohazard bags filled with poop. Out of all the echelons of ranking the cruise ships, I think Carnival is like the worst. I believe I've heard it called the Spirit Airlines of cruise ships. I've heard it definitely called the Walmart of cruise ships. More than 4,000 passengers and crew members were stranded aboard after a fire knocked out the ship's power. And during this time, they were without air conditioning, without lighting, food, water, and working toilets. At the time of setting sail in February, Triumph only had 4 of its 6 generators fully operational, and the company had an ongoing fire hazard in ships across its fleet. So even before they set off, they realized that 2 of our generators are down, and they were just like, we cannot take the financial hit. Please go. We gotta get people on the Carnival cruise and get them out there in the ocean. Go. So for the 4 days, poop was everywhere on this cruise ship, okay? The toilets wouldn't flush, and in some cases, toilets erupted. They overflowed and spilled into the hallways. People were handed bags and told to poop in the red biohazard bags instead of using toilets, because if you use the toilet, it's probably gonna explode and make things much worse. Imagine someone coming up to you and just being like, please just use this instead. These workers who probably fucking live on the boat 8 months out of the year a lot of these times are now subjected to being poop police, and this is supposed to be your vacation. You know what, I hate to say it, but this is divine punishment in a lot of ways. I think this is God letting you know. He's like, better watch out, poop cruise. They thought that this would be a civilized act, but in the end, poop was smeared all over the walls, all over the floor. People were rioting with poop on the Carnival cruise ship, and raw sewage pooled at the end of the deck. It all just accumulated at the end of the deck, and some passengers passengers avoided what little food there was so they didn't have to use their red bag. They saw the horrors going on and they were just like, we won't be one of those red baggers. The ship still operates, and the craziest thing is after all of this nightmare, this giant publicity stunt that happened, they still use this specific ship that probably has dried up shit somehow. It's probably in the walls, it's under the floor, but like, there's no way that they did a good enough cleaning. There's no way Carnival Cruise actually gave a fuck about that. They're probably just like, replace the carpet, we'll be fine. Moving on. But due to the loss of power, the ship's stabilizer stopped working, causing the ship to list, which I'll give you a nice little description of what that is here, which sloshed all the water and sewage aboard. It really put a damper on the whole day. And after the vessel took on water and tilted to one side, the ship's carpets and walls were soaked in a mixture of sewage and water. Many guests dragged their mattresses to outside decks to escape the high heat because there was no AC and the nauseating smell. So the heat and the cooking poop probably made what I could only assume is a mustard gas in the air. And to escape it, they tried sleeping in the hallways instead. They tried going outside and sleeping on the docks to no avail. It was just a big poopy situation. It was a big shit-filled sandwich. Some guests even constructed makeshift tents on the tanning deck with their bed sheets, which if you look at this, it looks like a fucking Mad Max picture. This is pretty unbelievable, but I will say out of all of this, the slide looks pretty fun. I would have gone on the slide, especially if there is a shitty situation. You have to enjoy it somehow, right? You're stranded at sea for 4 days. If you're gonna get shit on you somehow, at least let it be the slide is what I have to say. This is where shit really hit the fan. I keep saying these shit lines and it's making me laugh, but in an odd gesture to pacify guests, the cruise announced it would be hosting an open bar from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. Why on God's green earth would you want that drunk chaos when people have no real food or water? People are shitting themselves. None of the sewage system works. So now let's just get them drunk?
What?
This proved to be a horrible idea as guests on board became unruly, getting into fights, throwing things overboard, and damaging the already compromised restrooms. And the next day, the crew awoke to the news that they had drifted too far off course from the intended destination for the emergency port, which is really funny because that means to me that the crew definitely got fucking smashed as well to probably cope with how terrible this whole situation was going. They probably got absolutely smashed and they woke up the next day and they were like, oh my God, where the fuck are we? And it was definitely it would be definitely a comedy movie situation, except it's real life and people are probably extremely mad. They were so far off course that they had to get towed to Mobile, Alabama, adding another 2 days to the hell. They were already in it for 4 days and then they had to stack on an additional 2 just to get towed to an area where they could let people off and get out of this fucking nightmare. In the end, multiple passengers sued the cruise line, and in response, the company pointed out that they quote unquote said they never promised a safe trip. They pulled it in, and people of Mobile, Alabama were actually complaining how bad the ship smelled itself. Carnival Cruise, though they provided all passengers a full reimbursement, a free flight home, and a $500 credit, which what a slap in the face. $500 credit to what? Hey, you're gonna come see us again, aren't you? Hey, if you do have another vacation with, you know, your old ass wife and your annoying kids, please consider Carnival, would you? Tons of passengers still sued the company. Most, if not all though, lost their cases. No one really got reimbursed for this horrible fucking tragedy, basically being in prison for 6 days on a shitty, smelly ship, and Carnival made it out scot-free. And this exact ship is still used today. Blows my fucking mind. But you think sewage and poop are the only reasons to not go on one of these cruise ships? No, no, no. It is estimated that there are over 300 deaths on cruises each year. From 2000 to 2019, only 623 were reported. So I don't know what happened there. I think Carnival Cruises and Royal Caribbean and everyone else got the books together and they fudged some numbers. But still, in a 20-year span, how does 623 people, how do they just magically die? It still feels like such a high count to me. I don't know. Next up, in terms of death on a cruise, we're going to speak of the sinking Sewol. On April 16, 2014, the Sewol ferry sank on its way to South Korea. Out of 476 passengers, 304 of them died. 250 of these deaths were students. Most of the people that survived were rescued by fishing boats. When the ship was purchased in 2012, the ship was 18 years old and severely run down. After the purchase, the ship underwent modifications that were deemed illegal, but the Korean Register of Shipping let it go because the ship had quote-unquote normally passed its inspections and tests. Here's a list of some of these modifications. Addition of 2 decks. Expansion of cargo gross tonnage, adding 239 tons. Increasing the passenger capacity from 116 people to 956 36 people. These modifications caused the center of gravity to be moved upward, and it also caused a left-to-right imbalance. The vessel made 241 round trips before its final voyage, and at the time of sinking, it was carrying over 2,000 tons. The water balance tank beneath the hull of the ship, designed to keep it upright, was only adjusted for 800 tons of cargo, making the ship unstable. And like we said, it was only made for 800, but at this time, it was carrying over 2,000 tons, so just greatly over what it was supposed to be carrying. Due to the imbalance, the ship listed and needed directional guidance. The captain and his crew abandoned the ship shortly after telling passengers to wear extra clothing and life vests and to stay in their rooms. What a fucking monster, honestly. This fucking coward told people not to move and made an escape and did not let anybody know. The Coast Guard, who had jurisdiction, did not mobilize. They did not share the valuable data and did not act, leaving civilians and other organizations to step in, which is why many were rescued by fishermen and some commercial ships in the area. So literally, the Coast Guard didn't do anything in that situation. They didn't mobilize. They didn't share data. It was literally people from the town, fishermen from the town, that went out to help people. And that's pretty much why the people that were able to survive were saved by fishermen and civilians alike. I mean, these people were the actual heroes of the situation. Due to inaccurate reporting of survivors and those rescued, it was months before they revealed that the majority of people perished. And on May 15th, the captain and the 3 crew members were charged with murder. Yes! Yes! I fucking love these story endings! Except the people dying. That was not cool. Ugh, God, what a fucking coward. The sinking of the Swell and the young lives lost shocked and outraged the nation so much that many citizens called for the death penalty, something that South Korea hadn't administered in almost 20 years. Even the captain's brother said he deserved the death penalty. That's really funny. He's just like, fuck that guy. I know, we're blood. He's my brother, but fuck that guy. 11 other members were indicted for abandoning the ship, and an arrest warrant was also issued to Yoo Byung-hyun, owner of the ferry operation, but he could not be found despite a nationwide manhunt. That little slippery son of a bitch. In July of 2014, Byung-hyun was found in a field just south of Seoul. I wonder, that feels a little suspicious to me. And in 2017, 3 years later, a sunken ferry was raised from the sea floor where the trapped bodies of 9 of the victims were presumed to be inside. The body of a 16-year-old girl was never found. What a tragic end. I mean, just something where it's people trying to make extra money out of something. I do not trust these companies. I don't trust any of these cruise companies. It is the shadiest, weirdest shit. The ocean is just so scary within itself. I cannot imagine being some of these people and, God forbid, drowning to death. My God. I'm glad. I know, and I hope that he got the fucking death penalty as well. And you know what you're probably saying to yourself too? Well, if something bad happens on these ships, surely they have doctors, right? Well, let me tell you another story. On a separate cruise line, one of the employees has their arm amputated after experiencing flu-like symptoms. Let me say that again. An employee on a cruise line had his arm cut off, amputated, because he was showing flu-like symptoms. What? A carpenter, Elijah Lonkar, went to the doctor on board of the Norwegian Breakaway, Sebastian Campuzano. The doctor was very young and extremely inexperienced. He was prescribed promethazine. Promethazine? Like Prometheus? The guy who fucking stole fire and gave it to humans? Holy shit, that's sweet. Elijah was prescribed a promethazine shot and was given far too much. The injection is supposed to be, shot in your butt, but the doctor insisted on injecting it intravenously. And even after several complaints of the patient describing burning sensation and exhibiting some gangrene symptoms, the doctor continued administering promethazine via IV. So this doctor doesn't know what he's doing. He is literally hired professionally by this cruise ship to be there. And instead of giving the promethazine, it's just like a one-time shot in your butt. He is giving it to him via IV. It's almost as if it's like a fucking morphine tap, which because of this, his arm had to be amputated. And he sued the Norwegian Cruise Line and was awarded $4.6 million. But even with $4.6 million, which is awesome, that doesn't bring back your fucking arm, dude. So we've talked about tragedy. We've talked about accidents that happen, right? Well, needless to say, they're man-made accidents, thinking that 2 of your generators not working isn't a problem and it starts a fire. But, accidents, needless to say. Then you have a little bit of negligence, right? Or greed and negligence. You sit there and you let too many people come on, the fucking boat capsizes and people die. Or even you show some flu-like symptoms, you go see the doctor and you end up getting your arm fucking cut off. But out of all of these, the #1 reported crime on cruise ships to date is assault. Feels like such an obvious statement to say, but it is pretty crazy how egregious this is. Despite the severity of it, cruise ships have little interest in offering solutions, as it's likely cheaper to pay victims off than it is to implement precautionary measures. In a specific Carnival Cruise case where they were talking about a group assault on a minor, they went on record by saying that installing cameras and hiring more security would just be far too expensive, and they just weren't going to do it. So they'd just rather be like, we're just going to pay the victims off and their families. And another crazy statistic is 25% of these assaulters are crew members, people who work for the fucking cruise lines themselves. And I'm building up all of this information and telling you some of these statistics because it leads up to the Margaritaville at Sea Paradise incident. A bartender stole the key card to the room of a Jane Doe while serving her drinks. He snuck her into her room, and after she and her roommate had gone to bed, he assaulted her. And eventually, she found out she was pregnant and was forced to terminate the pregnancy. These assaults are so common in like cruise lines and stuff. There's an actual market for safety gear for reinforcing locks on cabin doors to remain safe. People get assaulted on these cruises all the time, and what's crazy is 70% of all assaults on U.S. cruises are on Royal Caribbean or Carnival cruises. I'm putting that out there just in case you hear someone who's like, hey, let's go on a Carnival cruise. You might be like, hey, can I give you this statistic? 70% of all reported assaults on these cruise lines in the U.S. are Royal Caribbean and Carnival. That's insane. When you're on these cruise ships as well, with the amount of assault, murders, negligence of people, one of the craziest things is passengers being more harmed to themselves than anything. That's people going overboard, going missing, right? People voluntarily jump overboard all the time. It's just, I don't know why people do it. I don't think people really realize how extreme the ocean actually is. The ocean is fucked. Like, if you jump in the ocean, you're probably, you're gone. Especially on a cruise ship, it's just like, boop. Bye. This video shows a guy jumping off into the ocean in the middle of the night. You would how would you find him? He's gone. He's still missing. That guy is still missing today. The guy we just watched jump up, he's gone. Don't know what happened to him. Okay? Well, I think we know what happened to him, but you know what? He had just graduated college. The same reason why I was on my cruise ship, to think I could have been a man who jumped overboard in the middle of the night. My God. Some people, all the times you get drunk, you lose your balance, you fall. And even in one of these cases, a man spent 20 hours in shark-infested waters, and he was supposedly sober. I think he was probably drunk as shit.
Did you have a few drinks?
I had during the day. I'd actually did like an air guitar solo, and there was a competition they were doing, and I'd won it, so I'd won a free drink.
And there's even sometimes too where it's not even a dare, or you're not even trying to be a badass, you're not even drunk. The woman here, she's just leaning backwards, loses her balance, and falls. And there she goes. I mean, it's staggering. There is nothing there to save you. Once you're over that dock, it is so rare that they get you, dude. Sometimes passengers go missing without going overboard. And as cruise ships have strict docking and departing times, it's often the case that passengers will be left behind at foreign destinations and never be seen again. When you're on these cruise lines, you're kind of hopping from island to island, and it's kind of like little resort towns and stuff like that. But these people, it's not like there's like a last call or something like a fucking bus. It's these motherfuckers leave. And a lot of the times when these people leave these ports, you're just gone. You never hear from these people again. Who knows what happens to them? Drugged, murdered, robbed, everything. I mean, the worst happens. Speaking of one of these victims was Amy Lynn Bradley. She went missing March 23rd of 1998. She came in late with her younger brother from clubbing on board around 3:40 a.m. and went to sleep on the balcony. At 6 a.m., her father woke to check on her, and she was missing. Authorities were immediately alerted as to her disappearance, and it was theorized she fell overboard and drowned, despite people asserting she was a very strong swimmer. Which, listen, dude, if you're a strong swimmer, who gives a shit? It's the fucking ocean. Like, people don't realize the power of the ocean. It's so scary. I'm telling you. The ocean is the scariest thing on earth. I don't care what anybody says. The captain refused to put out a call for her, refused to put up photos for her, and did not even attempt to search for her until noon of the next day after the ship had been disembarked and unlocked. In 1999, a member of the U.S. Navy claimed to have seen her working in a brothel where she told him who she was and begged for help. He did not. He did not report the sighting until after he retired, as he feared the repercussions to his career if he reported it. So because he didn't want to lose his stupid ass fucking job in the Navy, he never told about this woman in the brothel and never helped her until he retired. A fucking coward. An employee going by the nickname Yellow that had been seen dancing with her was quoted to have said that he felt bad about what happened to her before the search for her on the ship had even completed. Strange. It's almost as if he knew. Another sighting of her in 2005 showed her being held by 3 men in a department store restroom. She tried begging another person for help, but was taken away. Evidence has presented itself to assume that she was sold into sex trafficking. And a jawbone washed ashore in Aruba in 2010. Once they concluded it was not another missing person, it was disposed of with no DNA testing done, despite 9 other missing Caribbean vacationers. You see a bone wash up on the beach? Toss it back. It's good luck. Fuck sakes, man. At some point, a scammer contacted the family and proved to be legitimate enough to send over $200,000 to forge a rescue attempt to find Amy. Blew all the money on drinks and gambling and demanded more money after he provided convincing evidence that he found her in a fenced compound. Eventually, it was found out that it was a hoax, and he was convicted and ordered to pay back all that he stole. It's such a fucking horrible thing, especially to lie about that and get a family's hopes up is just so sad. And I wanted to include one from Disney Cruises because Disney Cruises scared the shit out of me, and unfortunately we have to talk about Rebecca Corium, which this incident happened in March 22nd, 2011. 11. She did not show up to her shift in the morning, was behaving distraught beforehand, and Disney publicly claimed to have no knowledge of where or when she went missing. Employees off the record were quoted saying they were supposed to tell people it quote-unquote didn't happen. Flowers were placed at a certain part of the deck by the company where she was suspected of going overboard. These employees claimed to have witnessed things or even know about things off the record, but it was publicly suggested she had a lover that she was having a fight with and committed suicide despite giving no other indication to family members. Her girlfriend went on the record several years later and claimed that she was using cocaine and having difficulties of that nature. There was even a claim that maybe a rogue wave swept her off, but the weather records indicate that it was like a pretty calm night, and that was very unlikely. They were given another crew member's flip-flops and told that she might have taken them off to sit on the rail and slipped off. Only one international police officer ever showed up, and a report was never done. A private settlement was reached 4 years later for an undisclosed sum, and this person, once again, never found. It's pretty insane the amount of horrible shit that goes on cruise lines. And here's the thing, I understand that horrible shit happens everywhere, right? But the idea that a cruise ship, you're completely stranded. These things that are supposed to be high luxury, your getaway, it's the thing that you work hard to pay for, and it's like these ultimate fucking death traps. At a moment's notice, you could just go overboard and go missing forever, and no one would ever find you. Something wrong can happen on the ship that you had no control over, and these companies should be held more responsible. But, $29 billion a year industry, I doubt that anything's gonna change, and people are gonna keep going because they have Guy Fieri Burger open 24 hours on these ships, and they have casinos and all this shit. And let me tell you, you will never find me on a cruise ship again. That shit is way, way too scary, especially with the ocean and stuff. If you've ever been on a cruise ship at night and you look off, it is a black void. There is nothing. You really don't know how alone you are until you're on a fucking cruise ship and you realize, oh fuck, I'm trapped. And the only thing you get to do is go off into these like vacation resort towns that are just filled with people trying to get you to buy shit. Personally, if I were you, don't go on a cruise. Find some other kind of vacation to do. You know what I mean? Treat yourself right. Buy yourself something nice. Pick up a new hobby, but for the love of God, stay away from cruise ships. Thank you so much for watching this video, and have a good one. See you guys.